I guess with that being said, right, with this industry and music marketing specifically always changing. I feel like every quarter it seems nowadays.
Yeah.
How can a musician stay ahead of the curve and making sure that they don't just end up doing what everybody else is doing when it's kind of already too late?
Absolutely. I think it's a good question. It's a hard one to answer. So we'll unpack it with a couple of facts and statements, right? So on the same wavelength that we were just on, right? There's only a finite amount of platform, right? So as far as like how to stay ahead of the curve, the only way to really do that is to be ahead of the platform. So like if you're somebody that pays attention to your area, like for example in New Jersey, there's a platform called Dumb Lit Studios, and they've been around for probably like a year and some change, but they've been there for 4 years. But I've only known about them for like a year and some change, and they're on the cusp of being the next big platform. So to stay ahead of the curve, get tapped in with them early, get on there early, get the content on there early. And that, I'm not just saying with that specific platform, but just constantly being updated with new content creators in your area, because that's really the only thing that changes is new content creators come up. So the reason why these freestyle platforms are so big is because last year they didn't exist. You know what I mean? Like they weren't as relevant as they are now, and eventually, to your point, they won't be relevant anymore. This method right now of dropping song, going on freestyle, going on blog, and getting signed, like this will only, it's worked for me 7 times. It's only going to work a certain amount more times before it's just done and it just won't work anymore. Like for example, if you remember, wind the clocks back to how did Lil Uzi, Lil Pump, Famous Dex, and all them blow up? SoundCloud. That's not
Hmm.
happening anymore. You know what I
No.
mean? Like how did a lot of the artists like your Two Rares, you know what I mean, or like your Arizona Zero Bosses, like how did they blow up? TikTok trends. That doesn't happen anymore. You know what I mean? Now, the way that you blow music up on TikTok is actually with the music and the artist, whereas it used to be the music and a dance and a creator. Now it's the actual artists putting themselves out there and pushing their own creativity. So the only way, in my opinion, to stay ahead of the curve is to pay attention to new content creators coming out and just be somebody that's always trying new things. If you see somebody else go on from the block and they do it at a school, don't do yours at a school. You know what I mean? Like if you see somebody else doing it, chances are you shouldn't be doing it. Not shouldn't be, but you shouldn't. You know what I mean? To stay ahead of that curve because people have already seen it already. You know what I mean? So I would just say to make sure your ideas aren't overused, check to make sure, whatever you want to do for your music video, make sure somebody hasn't used that concept. If you're going to, go on a platform, don't wear the same thing as somebody else did. Don't do the same thing as somebody else did. Like really just try and do something that hasn't been done before to catch the eyes. And that will keep you ahead of the curve because if you're following what other people are doing, you're already behind.
Understood. Yep.
But
Great
at the same
advice.
time, you kind of have to follow behind what the other artists are doing, but you have to replicate it in your own way. So same
Mhm.
platforms, different execution.
Yeah, creating familiarity. That's
Yeah.
how I like to call it. Actually, in one of our courses, uh, I specifically talk about that. My favorite analogy is you want to stand out in the party, not by being outside of the house party. You want to
Yeah.
be able to go inside of the party and then at the same time fit in while you stand out. Right?
Yeah.
It's
Look like you belong, but not like
yeah.
everybody else, you know?
Exactly. It's a very thin line, but that's if you can be there, you're doing it right.
Absolutely.
1000%.